Communication is sending and receiving information between two or more people. The person sending the message is referred to as the sender, while the person receiving the information is called the receiver. The information conveyed can include facts, ideas, concepts, opinions, beliefs, attitudes, instructions, and even emotions. As human beings, communication plays an important role. There isn't a day goes by where we don't communicate to others. Sometimes it's critical for our survival in the society itself. The most important role of communication is its direct impact on our interpersonal personal relationships. Either it makes or breaks a relationship. Often there are many case studies to prove that things or situation went from bad to worse due to communication gap. That is a break in the communication between two or more people, what we refer as communication barriers, obstacle in during the communication that leads to conflicts and misunderstanding. Common communication barriers. The following are some of the communication barriers. Physiological barriers. This includes a person's inability to properly send and receive messages due to a medical condition or lack of acute senses. Physical barriers. Physical barriers could include the presence of a wall or glass in between the people trying to communicate. This happens frequently while driving or on phone. It could be an equipment issue or just an inability to send or receive messages due to actual barriers. Cultural, racial and sexual barriers. Different social groups take on different forms of communication. As explained in the previous paragraph, this can create a great deal of misunderstanding between these social groups. Ambiguity. If a person uses a lot of ambiguous language, the particular meaning of a message may be misinterpreted due to multiple possible meanings. Linguistic ability. People tend to communicate in the way they are comfortable. If a person's linguistic ability isn't as refined or proper, they feel more comfortable using slang, terminology or lingo. These types of language variations often lose a lot in translation and can be ambiguous. Effects of assumptions on communication. Assumptions, one of the most difficult barriers to overcome in effective communication, is probably assumptions. But this can serve a positive function in that we often anticipate the other's reactions or share information more efficiently. In intimate relationships, when we assume how the other will feel, this always us to shape our own response in a manner that is most constructive and sensitive. Making assumptions about other people, in particular when someone says they are going off their intuition or that they have a hunch about something, then what they are really doing is making an assumption. Assumptions can be communication killer because when someone make an assumption based on their intuition, what they fail to accumulate are facts. Assumptions can have a negative effect on interpersonal relationships because they present a communication barrier that most people feel so frustrated about. They may find it difficult to move past. Our own individual experiences, vulnerabilities and strengths, of course, also shape our assumptions. Under very emotional and or stressful circumstances, however, assumptions can be maladaptive when marriages are stressed or in conflicted divorce situations, and individuals' assumptions about the intent or the meaning of the other's communication can attribute to an escalation in conflict. Even when the relationship is neutral or positive, our own vulnerabilities and stress may lead to inaccurate assumptions and communication difficulties. In highly emotional circumstances, when individuals misinterpret the feelings behind or motivation or exact meaning of the communication and react based on that misinterpretation, arguments often ensure. When marriages or other intimate relationships have had a history of stress or problems, emotions run high and assumptions are often quickly and arbitrarily formed. Types of assumptions that lead to strain on communication. Assumptions made regarding gender. Women are supposed to look after the house and children. Women are better at cooking. Men are better in leadership. Men are logical, whereas women are emotional. These are some of the common assumptions that we make on gender. Often we don't realize that our assumption impact at a subconscious level on our communication. Though not intended deliberately, we make certain jokes and comments without filtering this. The other gender probably getting irritated by these statements. Assumptions made regarding age. Seniors aren't as quick to learn today's technology as the younger population. Young people aren't interested in working. All they want to do is play games, text. Seniors aren't as quick on their feet as their younger counterparts. Organization and in our home consists of all the age group we built. Certain notions and correspondingly behavior regarding age group, but we need pause and check how often it's true. Is it the age gap really exists, and finally, is it usefully the mean in any ways? Assumptions made regarding minorities, education levels or household income. Rich people do not know the value of people lower class income. People are better off as white collar jobs. Commonly in India, BA in arts are students who are weak in studies. Really, these statements are not only assumptions based upon, but it in reality quite hurtful. Next time when we need to communicate with someone, we need to look into these checklists. Ways to prevent making assumptions. Because of assumption can be harmful to effective communication and interpersonal relationships. Developing a habit of fact-checking is conducive to prevention of assumptions. Some methods of fact-checking are: be patient when listening to someone and let them finish their thought or message. It is important to ask questions when you are feeling upset or stressed, or when you are not absolutely sure what the other person intended or mean in their communication. Asking open-ended questions like, "I'm not sure what you mean by that. Could you please explain?" is what to guard against negative or inaccurate assumptions. I statements such as, "I heard you say," or "Is that what you mean?" are important tools in clarifying the interpretation and actual meaning of the communication. When emotions run high and the relationship has had a rocky history, it is important to focus on the present and stay in the moment. Do not allow past experience to guide your reactions. Express yourself clearly and try not to use vague or emotionally charged language that can be misinterpreted. Separating your feelings from your understanding of the communication or situation is often helpful. This needs to be explained to the other person. I feel angry about what you have said, but I do see your point. Effect of attitude on communication. According to G.W. Alport, attitude is a mental and neutral state of readiness organized through experience, exerting a directive or dynamic influence upon individuals' response to all objects and situations with which it is related. Critch and Crutchfield defined attitude as an enduring organization of motivational, emotional, perceptual and cognitive processes with respect to some aspect of the individual's world. According to Katz and Scotland, attitude is a tendency or predisposition to evaluate an object or symbol of that object in a certain way. In effect, attitude is used in a generic sense as to what people perceive, feel and express their views about a situation, object of other people. Attitude cannot be seen, but the behavior can be seen as an expression of attitude. Attitude refers to attitudes can be defined as an affective feelings of liking or disliking toward an object that has an influence on behavior. Attitude or perception can impact business communication in both positive and negative ways. People with extreme points of view may find it hard to see one mother's perspective because each has the attitude that the other must be wrong without taking time to analyze the situation. Likewise, people with similar attitudes may inadvertently overlook instances of miscommunication because they have the attitude they are always in agreement with one another. Components of attitude. Cognitive component. Cognitive component of attitude is related to value statement. It consists of belief, ideas, values and other information that an individual may possess or has faith in. Quality of working hard is value statement or faith that a manager may have. Affective component. Affective component of attitude is related to person's feelings about another person, which may be positive, negative or neutral. I do not like Maya because she is not hard, or I like Mina because she is hardworking. It is an expression of feelings about a person, object or a situation. Behavioral component. Behavioral component of attitude is related to impact of various situations or objects that lead to individuals' behavior based on cognitive and affective components. I do not like Maya because she is not hardworking is an affective component. I therefore would like to disassociate myself with her is a behavioral component and therefore I would avoid Maya. Development of favorable attitude and good relationship with Mina is but natural. Individuals' favorable behavior is an outcome of the fact that Mina is hardworking, cognitive and affective components are basis for such behavior. Former two components cannot be seen, only the behavior component can be seen. Former is important because it is a base for formation of attitude on communication. Impact of pre-established attitudes. If you have a firm attitude about a particular issue, you are likely to communicate about it with a black and white perspective. For example, if your partner disagrees on differing parenting styles, even the most critical aspect will not register with you because of your pre-existing attitude. In this sense, your ingrained way of thinking impacts your ability to accurately and fully comprehend anything other than what you already believe. Inability to accurately judge. Anytime you have a preconceived notion or opinion, it impacts your ability or accurately communicate in a given situation. For example, if your marketing manager comes to you with a proposal for a new campaign and you have already decided ad campaigns don't work, your attitude impacts accurate and effective communication between you and your manager. Even if the manager works to open a dialogue about how to best approach a campaign so it reaches your target demographic. Your attitude about previous experiences can cloud the way you judge the current situation. Incomplete communication. Attitudes can impact the ability of people to fully and accurately communicate with one another. For example, we often end up fighting with our spouses or our children even before they complete the sentence because of your attitude on the person. This incomplete delivery of information can have a negative impact on our relationships and communication. Inability to see problems. Overly optimistic attitudes can lead to ineffective forms of communication. For example, if you have a project manager whose attitude is that last-minute work efforts are no big deal, he may not respond to reminders from staffers that elements of a project are unfinished or that deadlines are in danger of not being met. Because of his attitude, the communication simply doesn't register with him. Conflict. People who have conflicting views may find it hard to communicate with severity. Their attitudes may prompt them to avoid one another and limit all forms of communication and interaction. This can lead to a variety of miscommunication problems, particularly because neither party is likely to step forward to clarify or accept responsibility for problems that arise because of their joint failure to communicate. Attitudes to communication depends on your ability to read the attitude of the other person or group. This is something that can be picked up from the behavior you see and will reflect their emotions and feelings towards the communication. The emotions you identify throughout your communication will alert you to alter your communication style to suit that emotion being displayed. This is important whether you communicating at work or in your personal life. Being able to adapt your communication style will and you in achieving your objective. There are 4 types of attitudes towards communication. Passive communication, passive-aggressive communication, aggressive communication, assertive communication. Passive attitude. Firstly, there is the passive communications attitude. This best describes someone who tends to remain silent and go along with the other people's views and opinions, even if they disagree with them. You may recognize this individual within your team or department or in our family member and have thought that they were uninterested in the discussion, so did not ask for their views. Another possibility is that they are a thinker communicator who is hesitant to join in because they lack the information to support their views. By training your observation and listening techniques to pick up on such nuisances, you will be able to greatly improve the effectiveness of your communication. Passive aggressive attitude. The second communication attitude is known as passive aggressive. You will be able to identify such individuals in your discussions because they are the ones who use their body language or tone of voice to gain control over people or situations. For example, they may use sarcasm to subtly disrupt proceedings and manipulate a discussion to their viewpoint. Without being confrontational, when you see this happening, you will need to regain control of the conversation and create a more positive and effective atmosphere so that you can attain your objective. This may be something an active communication does to keep the discussion moving along at their own pace. It is also a way someone who is a connector may respond if they feel people's feelings are being overlooked or ignored. Aggressive attitude. The next communication attitude is called aggressive my way or highway common statement associated with them. This behavior, if not brought swiftly under control, is very disruptive and destructive. This attitude describes a one-way style of communication as the person is not listening to or acknowledging anyone else in the exchange. You will be able to recognize this sort of person because they will be expressing their views strongly. They will want to control the exchange so that they can achieve their own ends. Such individuals often display body language that is dismissive or threatening. Assertive attitude. The fourth communications attitude, known as assertive, is the one you and others in the exchange need to adopt in order to communicate successfully. This attitude creates an environment of honest and open communications where people are able to express their beliefs and views. This attitude encourages people to feel comfortable expressing themselves because they know that opinions will be listened to and respected whether or not they are agreed with. In your management role, you should always display an assertive attitude. The skill is learning to adapt what you say during the exchange so that efficiently achieve your objective without alienating anyone. The following list that can help you further improve your communication skills. Learn to listen. Listening is not the same as hearing. Learn to listen not only to the words being spoken, but how they are being spoken and the non-verbal messages sent with them. Use the techniques of clarification and reflection to confirm what the other person has said and avoid any confusion. Try not to think about what to say next whilst listening. Instead, clear your mind and focus on the message being received. Your friends, colleagues, and other acquaintances will appreciate good listening skills. Be aware of other people's emotions. Be sympathetic to other people's misfortunes and congratulate their positive landmarks. To do this, need to be aware of what is going on in the other people's life. Make and maintain eye contact and use first names where appropriate. Do not be afraid to ask others for their opinions, as this will help to make them feel valued. Consider the emotional effect of what you are saying and communicate within the norms of behavior acceptable to the other person. Take steps to become more charismatic. Empathy. Empathy is trying to see things from the point of view of others. When communicating with others, try not to be judgmental or biased or preconceived ideas or beliefs. Instead, view situations and responses from the other person's perspective. Stay in time with your own emotions to help enable to understand the emotions of others. If appropriate, offer your personal viewpoint clearly and honestly to avoid confusion. Bear in mind that some subjects might be taboo or too emotionally stressful for others to discuss. Encourage. Offer words and actions of encouragement as well as praise to others. Make other people feel welcome, wanted, valued and appreciated in your communication. If you let others know that they are valued, they are much more likely to give you their best. Try to ensure that everyone involved in an interaction of communication is included through effective body language and the use of open questions. Development emotional intelligence. The capacity to be aware of, control and express one's emotions and to handle interpersonal relationships judicially and empathetically. It is generally said to include 3 skills. Emotional awareness, including the ability to identify your own emotions and those of the others. The ability to harness emotions and apply them to tasks like thinking and problem solving. The ability to manage emotions, including the ability to regulate your own emotions and the ability to cheer up and calm down another person. Conclusion. At every level of modern society, communication is a problem. One of the problems is failure to recognize that it involves interpersonal dynamics and influence of our beliefs and attitudes. Values, workplace attitudes have an effect on every person in the organization, from employees to the company owner. Attitudes help to develop the prevailing workplace environment that determines employee morale, productivity and team building abilities. Understanding how positive and negative attitudes affect the workplace is an important tool in creating a harmonious workplace. Thank you.